Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming. I'm Rabbi Matthew Leibel, and like many of you in this room today, if not all of you, I am proud to say I was lucky enough to know Shom Roitenberg. Samuel Louis Roitenberg, Shom, which we believe was a unique combination of Sam, his given English name, and Shloime, his given Jewish name. His full Jewish name was Shloime, or Shlomo, Leib. Shlomo comes from the word shalom, peace. The name Shlomo means peaceable, peaceful. And Leib, from Yiddish, means lion. Strong, proud, courageous, a leader, a shining example to others. You may think at first these words don't go well together, but they are two names that perfectly capture this remarkable man. A man known throughout his life for being peaceful and calm, gentle, warm, friendly, funny, helpful, charming. A man who will be truly missed. Missed by his children, Janice and Evan and his wife Audra, by his grandchildren, Lindsay and Jillian, by his companion of the last 10 years, Bobby, by nieces and nephews, cousins, by friends, some of whom he's known nearly his whole life, 70 years, 80 years, maybe even longer. Shom passed away on Tuesday morning, the 27th of November, 2018, which is also the 19th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev in the year 5779. He was 93 years old. We begin our service this morning with the recitation of psalms and readings, linking Shom's life with thousands of years of Jewish tradition, with the people of Israel, with the eternity of God. Mizmor LeDavid, Adonai roi lo elsar, Bino deshe yarbitzeni al mei menucho, Yenahaleni nafshi yeshovein, Yancheni v'maglei tzedek leman shemo, Gam ki elech, Begates al mavet lo irara ki ata imadi Shiftecha umishantecha hema yenachamuni Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorarai Dishanta vashem en roshi kosi rivaya Ach tov v'chesed yirdefuni kol yemei chayai v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. Adonai, God is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters and restores my soul. He guides me on the right path, for that is his nature. Though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no harm, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a banquet for me in the presence of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflows. Surely goodness and loving kindness shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai, the house of God, forever. Our sages teach us, young or old, those who depart this life never see enough of the world. They never complete their task. They never cherish their loved ones enough before they're called home. How they yearn for yet another respite from the final summons, and how we yearn to have them close to us for yet another challenge in our lives, yet another joy, yet another precious moment together. We ask God, be now with those whose hearts are broken, because whenever parting comes, it comes too soon. God, console them at this moment. Be near to them when light seems distant. Sustain them until the time of healing. Shom Roitenberg was born March 8, 1925 in Winnipeg. He was the second child of Isaac Roitenberg and Rose Belchinski, European immigrants who had relocated to Winnipeg for a better life for their family. A North End family on Dufferin Avenue that had two older half-brothers, George and Pinchas, and an older sister, Sylvia, all of whom predeceased Shom. Shom's relationship with his sister Sylvia was something truly special. She was only 1 year older than he, but because of, let's call it, a power-hungry elementary school teacher who decided to fail an entire grade 3 class, Sylvia had to repeat a year, and so she and Shom were in the same grade year after year growing up together. Sylvia adored her younger brother. He was the apple of her eye, and she protected him. She was strong, tough, athletic, and everyone in the neighborhood knew, if you mess with Shom, you'll have to deal with Sylvia. So no one ever messed with Shom. This closeness, this bond, it didn't just last while they were young. Sylvia and Shom carried it throughout their lives. Shom joined the Air Force at 18 in 1943. After the war, he got a job as a cutter at Stalls. But he wanted more out of life. He toyed with the idea of becoming a lawyer, but it wasn't the right fit for him. Then there was this opportunity to move to New York to get training to become a union leader. He was set to go. And then his dad took ill, and Shom stayed back in Winnipeg to care for his ailing father. In the early 1950s, along with many friends, he got recruited into the insurance business, London Life, by a man known in the history books simply as Jacobson. Or sometimes they would call him Old Man. That career stuck. That was right around the time in his life when family entered the picture. Shom had married Sheila Roitenberg in 1951 at the Hebrew Fraternal Lodge. They met a year or two before that, set up on a blind date. Though just last week, Shom told me the story of the first time he saw Sheila at a party, a wind-up for a baseball league he was playing in. She was having a good time, but she was with another guy. But he noticed her. Sheila was a force of nature, passionate, intense, remarkable, incredibly musical, which Shom was not. He loved her. They built a life together on balance. She ran the house. She really did everything for him. And he kept her calm. Supported everything she did. They traveled together. They played cards together. They went to shows together. Out for dinner, one of Shom's favorite activities. Later in life, they spent winters in Palm Springs together. Their son Carrie was born in 1954. Janice followed a few years later. And sometime after that, a little later, Evan. Shom and Sheila remained devoted and loyal to Carrie, who became very ill as a young man and was plagued throughout his life. They relied on each other for strength and helped each other through everything. They shared 57 years of happiness before Sheila herself took ill and passed away nearly 10 years ago, almost to the day. That was just yet another trial Shom persevered through, as he always did throughout his life, with quiet dignity, stoicism, and pride, like Shlomo Leib, peaceful, a lion. This is just the brief outline of a wonderful man, and it is now my honor to call up Evan, Shom's son, to deliver the hesped, the eulogy, and fill in more stories and color on Shom Roitenberg.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Rabbi. I'm not going to tell you that my father was a great man or that he was my hero. I'm not going to tell you that all I have grown, all that I have grown to be, all of my accomplishments were made possible with his love and support. And I'm certainly not going to tell you that to have known my father, to have been his friend or a member of his family, was to have been close to a gentleness and kindness cloaked in the body of a man. What I will share with you, however, is some poetic interpretation. The poets, and by the poets, I mean the collective known as Pink Floyd, penned a song that started with the line, "The memories of a man in his old age are the deeds of a man in his prime." And I think of that phrase and I wonder what is meant by his prime. I expect the intended meaning is the carefree time as a child or a teen or maybe one's time as a young adult. But is that really one's prime? As I think of my dad, I smile and think of the stories he'd share of his childhood, going to Aberdeen school, the exploits he shared with my aunt, Sylvia, a blessed memory, or stories from his teen years when he went to St. John's Tech and he'd tell me of sneaking into the old Osborne Stadium to watch a football game. Was that his prime? Or was it the time that he spent hanging out at the White House on Selkirk Avenue with those same childhood friends as they entered adulthood? Was his prime when he joined the Air Force towards the end of World War II? He was a mechanic. That joke writes itself to anybody who knows of my father's mechanical inclination. I could muse that his prime certainly was not his exploits as a mechanic when he tried to open a stuck window in our house in Garden City by taking a hammer to the glass pane. But I digress. A mechanic in the Air Force. My dad had told me many times the story during his training when his sergeant, convinced that my father wasn't paying the least bit of attention, demanded, "Roitenberg, define flutter." Flutter being an aviation term. My dad, the story goes, gave him the textbook definition, verbatim, by rote. But the amazing thing is that my dad, into his 90s, could still give the verbatim definition of flutter as he shared the story. Was that his prime? Or was his prime his days on the baseball diamond? Dad was a first baseman. He played for and later managed the Whirlaways, a storied North End team in what was then called the 20th Century League. In fact, part of this history, because I thought he was making it up, was captured in a book called The King of Diamonds, a story of Winnipeg baseball. What isn't captured in the book is that my dad continued to play into his 80s and for a time ran a league of aging stars as they played in Kildonan Park. The baseball prime was a lengthy prime, but was it his prime? Was my dad's prime being a loving son, a man, my father, with one foot on the platform to head to New York, to study to be a union leader, only to be told of his father's illness? A choice needed to be made, and he chose to remain at home and forego opportunity for the sake of family. Or was his prime being that loving brother, maintaining a relationship with his sister that shone as an example to any set of siblings? Was my dad's prime 37 years at London Life? First as a salesman, then as a manager of a staff that received national recognition for its prowess. My dad's management style was simple: do as little as possible. Let the sales talent do their stuff. His talent was finding the right people to make him look like a genius manager. He was recruited along with so many other young North End Jewish men into the business. And my dad and those other men, some lifelong friends, some acquaintances whose friendship had not yet taken root, all joined the company in that era. Lifelong friendships were made. Some friendships have survived struggles, some needed rebirth after a hiatus, but all were born of a time and a common experience. Was that his prime? Was his prime his life as a friend? Always being there for the boys he grew up with as they navigated life, reaching out, maintaining friendships with those who moved away, playing cards, the weekly bridge games I remember as a kid, the weekly poker games as he grew older, championing his friends in their successes, consoling and encouraging them when life wasn't as kind. Does my dad's prime refer to being a father of three? Being supportive, loving, insightful, and always proud. Dealing with one Lulu of an unexpected curveball. That life would throw, finding the strength to lead the family forward. When my brother took ill in the early 70s, it could have defined our family, but my dad with my mom was determined to give us all, including Carrie, the best life we could possibly have. Carrie's challenges and his situation became a part of our lives, but didn't define our lives. And that was the result of unbelievable strength on the part of my parents. Does prime refer to 57 years of being a supportive husband, being my mom's biggest cheerleader as she pursued her musical exploits, always in the audience or the congregation, always proudly beaming, and his 2 years doting on my mom as she battled her own fight with the dreaded C word, at her side as she continued to defy the disease? Or perhaps his prime was his independent spirit. He seemed to defy the aging process. He renewed his gym membership in August. For his 91st birthday, he decided to buy himself a new Acura, which I just sold for him last month. To be honest, most of us would have preferred to travel back in time and get on an Air Force plane my dad had mechanicked upon than get in a car while he was behind the wheel. So driving and the word prime are not going to be equated, but he held on to his independence fiercely and proudly. Does dad's prime mean his time as a grandfather? Not nearly enough time at just under 16 years. The name Yaya, because a certain someone couldn't master the word Zeta. Worn as a badge of honor from the day it was first spoken until early Tuesday morning, and now part of a legacy that will echo forever as often as the name is spoken. A proud Yaya. He loved nothing more than watching a performance, a basketball game, or hearing of what his angels were up to. Being a Yaya gave my dad strength and fuel, the presence or mere mention of his Lindsay and Jilly never failing to bring a smile to his face. Even the name Yaya is unique, the one and only Yaya. Come to think of it, does anybody anywhere know of another Shom? Maybe this man's prime, my father's prime, was all of it. Maybe prime doesn't refer to a time frame. Maybe it is a life well lived. Maybe it's living a life with a good name, a Shem Tov. I've known many people in my life, personally, professionally, and I've known of many, many more. A rarity is an individual of whom no one can speak a bad word. My father was such an individual. I recognize that I'm his son, and few would dare speak ill of my father to my face, even if they wanted to. But my dad was someone who everyone genuinely liked. The fascinating part is that Dad really didn't understand how much he meant to people. He touched the lives of so many and yet always thought of himself as having little impact on the world around him. In the last couple of days, I've heard from many of my dad's friends that he was their idol. My father could never have comprehended that. My friends and some family who have reached out from away all come back to the same theme. that my father was an especially gentle and exceedingly warm and loving man. Such was his nature, such was his humor, his very bearing. None of that ever wavered throughout his life. So I say to you, as remarkable as it may be, at 93 and 2/3 years, that the memory of this old man is that he was cut down in his prime. My dad was proud of his kids. My dad was proud of me. But I can tell you that that pride is dwarfed by the pride I feel in being his son. Whether you called him Mr. Roitenberg, Shloimel, Sam, Shami baby, whether he was Uncle Shom, Dad, Daddy, or Yaya, he was a wonder. And the fact that he is no more is still incomprehensible to me. We love you, Dad. Your memory will always be cherished.
Thank you, Evan. An amazing tribute. I don't always know the people for whom I officiated their funeral, but I knew Shom Roitenberg. Throughout my life, every interaction I've had with him was exactly as Evan described. Friendly, warm, gentle. For me, personally, he was a tremendous source of support and encouragement throughout my career. Still on a personal note, I'll remember his humor. Shom was funny. He loved to laugh. He loved to be made to laugh. I can close my eyes right now and picture his face, and it's a face with a smile. Only Shom had that smile. I can close my eyes and picture his laugh. So charming. Like Evan said, who didn't love Shom? At our visit last week, we talked about a number of things. He told me stories, and I have to tell you that we talked about his mustache. Because you can't forget Shom Roitenberg's mustache. His mustache is a lot like he. Simple, yet cool. He didn't have one of these big, bushy mustaches. Simple, yet cool. Unassuming, yet it stood out. Again, I'll say no one really has a mustache like Shom Roitenberg. And he couldn't remember when he started growing it. It was just a part of him. And that's fitting, because there really is no one like him. Like Evan said, are there any other Shoms? There is certainly no other Shom Roitenberg. It's a shame he didn't know or didn't believe how many people truly loved him. Maybe that's because he was just too humble. Maybe that's because he just loved people. This table I'm standing at, in front of it, there are Hebrew words that say, Ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. One of the most profound and powerful Jewish teachings from the Torah. You shall love your fellow, your neighbor, your friend as yourself. That was Shom. His life was about doing for others. Doing for others, helping others, being there for others. Whether it was his own family, the love and dedication he showed his parents, his siblings, his son Kerry, Zichrono Livracha, whom he visited every day, his wife Sheila, Zichrona Livracha, Janice, Evan, Audra, Lindsay, Jillian. Or the strangers he delivered food to as a driver for Meals on Wheels after he retired from London life in the 90s. Or maybe the people he lived with in the Shaftesbury. He was their driver, always offering rides so other residents could get to their appointments to run errands. In the last few months, as Shom's health weakened, he wasn't upset because he had to give up his car, because he was losing his independence. He was upset because he couldn't, after 90 years, he couldn't help people anymore. That's all he really wanted to do. I will say there is one word missing from Evan's eulogy, and that word is mensch. It means a person of integrity and honor. That's the dictionary definition. And it's not a word we use lightly, because really in Jewish tradition there is no higher compliment that can be paid to a man. You talk about having a good name, a good reputation, which our sages, the rabbis, teach us is really the only thing that endures. Shom Roitenberg has a good name because he was and still is the definition of a mensch. Evan, you invoked the words of Pink Floyd, and that sparked something for me. Long you live and high you'll fly, and smiles you'll give, tears you'll cry, and all you touch and all you see is all your life will ever be. Shom Roitenberg touched so many. He's an inspiration to us all, a way we should live our lives. May his name, may his memory be a blessing as we mark that his essence, his inspiration, will never leave our hearts and our souls. Please rise now for the memorial prayer, the El Malei Rachamim. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein B'Meromim, Hametzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei HaShekhinah, B'malot Kedoshim Uteorim, Kezohar Arakia Mazhirim, and Nishmat Shlomelei ben Yitzchak Yona v'Rachel Shalach leolamo. Began Eden tehei menuchato, Anabal harachamim, hastireu beseter knafecha leolamim, utzeror bitzeror achayim enishmato, Adonai hu nachalato. V'yanuach v'shalom al mishkavo, v'nomar Amen. El Malei Rachamim, exalted, compassionate God, grant infinite rest in your sheltering presence among the holy and the pure to the soul of Samuel Shom Roitenberg, son of Isaac and Rose, who has gone to his eternal home. Merciful One, we ask that our loved one find perfect peace in your eternal embrace. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. May he rest in peace. And let us all say, Amen. Please be seated. The next step in our ceremony is interment, which will take place at the Shared Zedek Cemetery, located at 230 Armstrong Avenue. That's across Main Street from Kildonan Park. We invite you to follow with us in caravan fashion to the cemetery. We'll be putting our four-way flashers on, but still stopping for all red lights. As we make our way up Sherbrooke to Logan, down Logan to Salter, over the bridge, and down Salter to Armstrong. We invite you to join us, a sign of respect accompanying our loved one to his final resting place. But if you choose to remain here at the synagogue and wait for us to return, I expect we'll be back about an hour and a half after we leave, maybe a little longer because of the roads. We will return here to Congregation Sharet Zedek after interment for a meal of consolation, as our thoughts shift from honoring Shom and his memory to consoling the mourners, family members left behind to grieve. Shom's family will be observing a week of Shiva in his memory at Evan and Audra's home, 880 Campbell Street. This evening from 7 to 9 with prayers at 7:30. Tomorrow from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. Saturday from 7 to 9 in the evening. Sunday only from 2 to 4 in the afternoon. And then Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, 2 to 4 in the afternoon, 7 to 9 in the evening, with prayers each evening at 7:30. In a moment, I'll invite the family and pallbearers to leave by way of the chapel. After they're ready, we'll open the doors at the back of the sanctuary, which is your cue to exit. We ask that you help us observe a long-standing custom we have here at Sharet Zedek of forming 2 rows through the foyer and onto the steps of the building. 2 rows of family, friends, and community for Shom to pass through on his final journey. Again, a sign of deep respect. To the mourners we say these words, long-standing in our tradition. Hamakom yinachem etchem betoch she'ar avelei Tzion v'Yerushalayim. May you be consoled and comforted among all those who have mourned and do mourn. Family and pallbearers, you may now go. Thank you again to everyone for coming this morning, for joining your hearts together with Shom's loved ones. Thank you.